This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are here in Las Vegas at the Consumer Electronics Show, bringing together leading innovators and thought leaders on what's new and what's being worked on and what's going to impact both consumers and businesses. Today, we have a special guest here in the mobile studio, David Su. David, thanks for taking the time to join us here in the show.
Thanks so much for having me here.
So, we always like to start the show with letting the listeners have a little bit of background on you. So before, not jumping into the company of the technology, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
It's my least favorite topic to talk about.
It is actually, it's what's interesting. It's actually the hardest question I always ask guests because they never want to talk about themselves.
Sure. I guess over the last 10, 20 years, I've personally been working in the Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and wireless connectivity space. I joined a small company called Atmosic Communications, I guess in 99. I think it's employee number 5. And it has been an amazing journey seeing how the company go from there to a public company and eventually being acquired by Qualcomm. And I stayed for the next 5 years or so and then left, and here I am with Autmosic.
So your background has always been in the wireless space.
Correct.
Where'd you go to school at?
I have a PhD from Stanford.
From Stanford? Yeah. And what did you do? Did you do your master's there too?
No, I did my master's at University of Tennessee and my bachelor's there as well.
University of Tennessee?
Correct.
Wow. I love University of Tennessee. I'm a University of Illinois guy though.
Good.
So gotta be a Big Ten guy. And so wireless has just gone through phenomenal changes over the last 20 years.
Amazingly.
If you remember the early days, I started off in wireless doing the original AMPS cellular here in the U.S. in the late 80s.
Yes.
And now you look at cellular, and then the early days of Wi-Fi.
It's amazing that it's everywhere now because, for example, my daughter just started college, and she was asking me, "What's an Ethernet cable?" And so now you have entire generation.
That's a classic. Yeah. The millennials today don't know what an Ethernet cable is, or what an RJ45 connection looks like.
Right.
Yes, yeah. It is. But I remember though in the early days of Wi-Fi, it didn't get a lot of traction for many years because coverage, reliability, and it's a little bit of a chicken and egg problem because you have to have the capabilities in the device and the network in place for them to make it work.
And like any difficult technologies, it takes a while for it to get to the point that the early adopters accepts it, and then eventually becomes a mass market.
Right.
So yeah, it's interesting. Can I tell a story about our first trade show? I think at Ethereum now. This is old history. Our first demo for wireless connectivity, I think, is about this far. In measures in inches or feet, and today, you wouldn't think twice. Yeah.
Well, and now the Wi-Fi 6 is becoming the big topic. As far as where that's going to go. I've been involved in the unlicensed LTE work. And how that's coming into the space. 3.5 gigahertz and all the new spectrum, spectrum policy happening around the world. People, the consumers just expect it to just work and be everywhere.
Right.
And that is an interesting challenge. When I was CTO at HP, I used to jokingly say, and it was the true case, on Christmas Day and the day after Christmas, when you looked at the call logs into the customer support, someone got a new laptop or printer or whatever, and they went to go hook it up. Wi-Fi was the number one thing. But what was really funny about that problem though is that the consumer just assumed that Wi-Fi came with it. What do you mean I have to have a Wi-Fi network?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So that's why if you ever look closely, like on the outside of a laptop box or a printer box, it'll say Wi-Fi not included.
Wow.
Okay. because the consumers, it's just become so ubiquitous, they don't think about it. Now, most people have it now in their homes.
Yeah.
And what is it? More than 50% of all wireless data goes over Wi-Fi. Even more now. Even more now.
Yeah.
And so therefore it's not a wish I had. It's a must be there.
I think it's a good story how a technology started from the early days to now it's everywhere. You don't even think twice about it. And it's a journey though. It took, I think, 10, 15 years for it to be truly widespread and easy to use.
Yeah, and it's interesting from the standpoint of the early days. We ended up with vendors having slightly proprietary solutions.
Right. Yes.
And it does talk to the testament of an industry coming together. And and being willing to standardize versus everybody trying to create some kind of
proprietary
and
don't talk to each
fence
other.
ring and trying to create blocking strategies
right
for everybody.
Yeah, in many cases, because you can interoperate, everybody wins at the same time.
Right. And look, it's you're standardizing on the interface. You still have lots of room to invest and innovate inside the capabilities.
Absolutely.
It's not and this is the thing that I always, whenever you see like new innovations in totally new areas where everybody's trying to be proprietary at the interface layer, I'm like, why? You're actually going to slow down adoption.
And everybody hurts.
And everybody hurts. Well, the consumer definitely. Yeah. And if the consumer gets frustrated with with something like that, if the friction is just too much, they're not going to do it. They're just going to say, "Forget it. I'm not interested. I'm not going to go there."
Agree.
So you got acquired by Qualcomm.
Yes.
You were there. Then you decided to leave. What caused you to leave? What was the problem you saw that was causing something? I've got a better idea. What was it?
Actually, there isn't a problem. It's probably a personality flaw.
Well, I haven't heard that term before to describe it, but this could be interesting.
No, I actually enjoy my work at Qualcomm. There's a lot of different areas, things I could pursue, but I felt like that journey that I've taken for the last almost, I guess, 18 years or so has ran its course. I felt like I can coast. I can look forward towards retirement. And I thought there's probably more to life than I might be able to do something more. So that's when I actually walk away with no plan.
With no plans.
Yeah.
So you just said, okay, I'm gonna take. And then what? Then what? Then it was just basically kind of looking for that next opportunity.
Right. So I was doing a few things that I enjoy doing and things that I thought, well, I wanted to learn. For example, I learned how to write apps on a phone, which someone told me you are too old to learn. So I felt like I have to do it once. And then another coworker left, and he called me up. This is Masood Zagri, a co-founder. He called me up and said that let's start a company. And I said, well, he has a good history. He has done well in the past, and I enjoy working with him. I said, okay, what do you want to do? So next thing you know is we have to spend time brainstorming. And then we reached out to people we knew in the industry. And for example, we reached out to Teresa Meng, who was the co-founder of Atheros. She was the founder of Atheros with other people. Right. So, and then she met up with us. She's very generous with her time, giving advice. We talked to Bruce Woolley, my former advisor at Stanford as well. Then we met up with actually John Hennessy. Back then, he was still the president back then, so it took a while to get your appointment in to see him. They were all very generous in giving us guidance what to do. And one thing you said earlier about being standardized, being interoperating with everything around, their point to us essentially is that if you want to do anything meaningful, make sure it works with what is out there. Don't create your own niche market. Right. Make it meaningful.
Right. Making meaningful and take away any friction why someone would reach out
to you
and not want to do it.
Yeah.
So how long was that process from the time you and your co-founder said, yes, let's go do something, don't know what to do, to the time where you think you really had an idea that you could?
It's probably longer than you think.
Well, that's the point.
Yeah.
Don't rush into this. Make sure you really think it through, right?
Right. We tried different ideas. And I guess at the end of the day, it's sort of ideas that are meaningful things that we can actually contribute to, that we know something about, we actually have confidence we can deliver.
Right.
So it's an intersection. By the time you do that mental Venn diagram, it sort of focuses you
Right.
to what can you do well and what is meaningful.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with David Su, hear more about this company that met all of these criterias. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the Biz Talk Radio Network. Welcome back to Killer Innovations. So, David, let's talk now. At the end of the last segment, you talked about the criteria that you were looking for on when you were coming up with an idea. And obviously, 2.5 years ago, you found that space where you felt you could, likelihood to achieve delivery, something that was going to work within the existing ecosystem. So what is that?
Okay. So what we decided to do essentially is that based on our background in wireless, so let's stay with the wireless area and looking at what is already done, what we have done as well, how much improvement can we do on a platform that already exists. So making it the same as what we have, except much, much lower power. We think that battery is an issue that all of us face. I guess we all know that. We use more batteries than ever. I would like to think in a way, wireless connectivity is in a way guilty of that. Because by not having a data cable now, it's very difficult to insist on consumers now, please plug it into a power cord. So what can we do in terms of reducing the reliance on the batteries that we now use? Because as you know, we Americans now, I think, throw away 3 billion batteries a year.
3 billion batteries a year. Wow.
And
that's a big number.
They're going somewhere.
Yeah, they're going, and most people don't dispose of them properly.
Properly as well. So imagine making that problem better, reducing that reliance, and especially for the lower power devices you have around your home. And so what we started doing essentially is looking at the standards-based systems that is widely deployed, which one has the lowest power that we can make an immediate impact on, and we settle on Bluetooth. So our first solution actually is a Bluetooth 5 SoC that has dramatically lower power. In fact, when we have the team together and redesign it from ground up, we were able to achieve power that is 5 to 10 times lower than what you can find in the marketplace without compromising performance. So that gives you, say, 5 times longer battery life. So one way I like to compare against, for example, if you imagine today's solution is like the incandescent light bulb, where the LED, it still gives you light, some same feature. So we did that as a baseline. And now, as you know, innovation is important to us as well. So we look at from a system point of view, from Bluetooth. Bluetooth today, the most widely used application from Internet of Things is to have something that transmits periodically, but you only need it for a few times a day. For example, you put a sensor on your window. How many times do you need to know whether it's open or closed? Or a door, for that matter. But most devices now transmits almost every second.
Yep.
So 80,000 times versus, say, 10 times, 100 times. So we put in a system level check, so you can now only transmit when you need to. So that's the second piece of it. Obviously, that requires the system to change a little bit in software. And with that, you can now bring the power down even further. And the last piece that I'm personally most excited about essentially is how do you make a device battery last forever or be battery free? With the energy being so low now, energy harvesting makes a lot of sense because harvesting energy is a difficult problem. In fact, much like your Wi-Fi story earlier, it's a journey. But today you can harvest milliwatts. You can't harvest watts yet easily unless you have a huge solar panel on your rooftop. So mobile devices now can harvest milliwatts of energy, 100 microwatt energy quite readily under certain conditions now. So can we do that? So what we end up doing is adding to all our silicon directly a RF energy harvester that converts the incoming RF energy that we use for communication. We now convert that to DC power and you can now power our chip. Because power is low enough, you take the energy, powers itself. But you do need a source nearby.
Right.
So those are the three pieces. Lowest power that we can design, and then system level trade-off to minimize devices to be on unless you need them. And then lastly, RF energy harvesting for your battery to last forever or be battery free.
So what are the products that is your SoC currently in shipping products today?
We are sampling now, and we will be in volume production in Q2 this year.
Okay. And what would be the kinds of devices that you would see first implementation using your SoC?
So with a 3-sector, we are targeting a very wide market space. The first products will probably be one that would just benefit from the lowest power that we have now. Because for a same solution, you now have a battery life, let's say, lasts you half a year. Now it will last you 2.5 years. So imagine you can save quite a few batteries in the process. So those will likely be the first ones.
So is that like an IoT device, or
there'll be some IoT device in beacon tracking devices. Right. We are also looking at HIT devices, as in computer peripheral devices that we do use a lot of. Mm-hmm. So that those devices can now be much longer battery life without having to change the ecosystem around you.
Correct.
Yeah. So those will be the first introduction.
Okay.
And then we are working with partners that will have the longer term vision of what one of our partners referred to as battery-free utopia. Yeah. So in that case, you have an ecosystem now, especially in enterprise or commercial type applications. Think of a warehouse, for example, whereby you can actually afford to put in an infrastructure. You have all these devices that are battery-free that you need to track.
Right.
And you no longer need to worry so much about, I have 1,000 devices, packets in there, and are the batteries going to run out before I move them out? So now, but you can set up the infrastructure.
Right.
So those, I think, will be truly exciting type of application. So I'm looking forward to seeing the battery usage being lower for all of us readily, and then in the longer term with that battery-free utopia.
And what's been the reaction from the companies that you've been talking to that are building these devices?
So far, everybody loves longer battery life. So usually the conversation starts by, we talk about lower power, longer battery life. People say, okay, that's good. When do you have samples and so forth? And then we say, oh, by the way, we have these 2 other technologies. And usually by the end of the conversation, I always worry they forgot the first piece. But truly, I think the first piece is probably it's a lot of work, as you know, to bring the power down dramatically.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that piece is quite meaningful. I just don't want to undersell that piece of it.
Right. So we're going to take another quick commercial break. When we come back, one of the things I want you to think about over the commercial break is a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs. Okay. They maybe have an early stage idea. Okay. You've done now 2 startups, right? Startup that got acquired by Qualcomm, and now you've got your new company. What advice would you give an entrepreneur who's maybe has an early inkling of an idea, and they get a chance now to listen to you act as an advisor? What advice would you give an entrepreneur to really think about as they go through this process of thinking about stepping out and doing something on their own?
Okay, so, I'll try my best.
So we'll come back from the commercial break. David's going to share his expertise. We'll be right back after this break. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network. Welcome back to Killer Innovations. So David, as we were going to commercial break, I gave you a little bit of a challenge. You've had, phenomenal career success. Left Qualcomm, which would be comfortable for, particularly in the wireless space. It's kind of the holy grail place for a lot of wireless people to find their homes and be able to do some great and exciting work.
I agree.
Now you stepped away, and you and your co-founder took on a new challenge. A lot of the listeners of the show are innovators. They're working on their own ideas. And given your career success and your perspective, here's an opportunity for you to act as an advisor to the listeners. Now, these are innovators that could be non-tech, tech, but what advice would you give an innovator if they're thinking about stepping out and doing something on their own?
Okay. Yeah, it's a tough question. There's a lot of advice out there. I think I'm sure all of us have read books.
Right.
There are steps you go through and things you check. And yes, I read those books too. But I'll give a personal opinion. I felt like one of the most important thing is whatever you do, make sure it is something you believe in, something you are passionate about. And even when things get tough, you are willing to tough it out. So because the worst thing is you did something because you think you can make money quickly. You think it's a easy thing, and when things don't go right, and I really hated the idea in the first place, then it will go really badly because it's a long journey, as you know.
Yes.
Nothing happens quickly, and it's long hours. It's without that passion and drive that you believe in, I think that I will put it number one.
Yeah, interesting because there's also this. There's some people out there, because it's always been the encouragement of do what you're passionate about, right?
Yeah.
If you would be willing to do it for free.
Correct. Which most innovators end up having to do for free for a
For
very long duration.
Fact, when you're starting out, you're doing it for free.
Yes.
Because you're spending your own savings to get the idea going.
Right.
But there's also this adage. There are some advisors out there who are saying, no, it's not about the passion. It's about the money thing. But I'm in your camp, which says if your motivation is to try to make just do it for the money. Like this is going to be big. Make my first 10 million or first 100 million or whatever. And then as soon as you get into a little bit of friction, you're hopping off onto the next thing. You never stay anywhere. And, listeners of the show have heard me tell this story. I did not get to my first IPO until my 13th startup.
Wow. Okay.
13. So I started in 1980. I got to the Valley the first time in the early 80s, and and that was primary jobs, having a couple side hustles going, right? And but it was, and I'll tell you the difference on my success. It was the team,
which is my number two.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's having in your case, you talked about. The co-founder, that you had worked together, you had confidence, you had trust.
You need to have trust, and you need to believe in each other, and always surround yourself with people smarter than you.
Right.
And then be willing to listen. Because none of us is right all of the time. In my case, almost none of the time. So listen to people who are smarter than you, and obviously, not blindly, obviously, right? Seek out advice. You can double check. You can get advisors that has way more knowledge than you have. Make sure what you do is grounded on reality.
Right.
You can have a passion to have a flying car tomorrow, but it's not going to be tomorrow.
Right.
Right. So make sure that, and so the team is important. Make sure that at the end of the day, it's a business.
Right.
Yeah. So you do have to do all your legwork on the business side of things as well. I think there are plenty of books that talks about that part.
Right. So David, because in your case, did you and your co-founder, was it complementary skills? Did you have skills in different areas that kind of filled in for each other?
There are actually 4 of us.
Okay.
Yeah. So Masood Zagri, Manolo Saravides, David Nakahira, and myself.
Okay.
And we do have similar skills and some complementary skills in order to be able to deliver the entire solution, most of it at least. Yeah. And then you need to go out there and find the right team members that will complement you and make it complete.
Right.
Because to me, it's very difficult to have a wide spread of skills that covers everything. So from innovation, technology side to the development work to business side. So I would argue that almost nobody has that breadth at all. So if you have the founding team, the core team to start with, but you need to very quickly add on to it with the smartest people you can find. And that they will add in all the pieces of the missing puzzle.
So how big is Atmosic now?
We have about 30.
Okay. And how much money have you raised?
21.
Okay. Who are your investors?
We have Sutter Hill Ventures, Clear Ventures, and Walden International.
Wow. Yeah. That's a good crew.
These are our lead ventures.
Yeah. That's a good crew. So we talked a little bit about advisors, right? And everybody wants to, how do you find the right advisor? And because, you talked earlier about, because of, not many people can get on Hennessy's, docket to get him to pick up the phone.
We are very fortunate, yes.
Right. What advice would you give to an entrepreneur in finding an advisor? Because there are some advisors who are really good, and there's some advisors, as we know, that aren't as good. So what criteria would you use if you were to select, when you looked at select advisors, people that you're going to listen to or seek advice from?
It's actually a question we didn't spend much time on, just because we have worked with
you
an
knew them.
individual. We were lucky enough to know the individual. So we actually reach out to people that has been helping us, guiding us over our career path over the last so many years. In fact, I will argue it's not just for startups or innovators. All of us in our lives should seek out individuals that will guide us. People will tell us the truth all the time.
Right.
And I personally have been very fortunate to have that.
And I think that's a good point, because sometimes people wait too late and they're going to try to find an advisor to solve a particular problem versus having somebody who know you and who's been walking alongside you for an extended period of time.
Right. All of us need help. All of us need advisors. So that is something that I think, independent of whether you're starting a company or not, and we went there immediately. So we're going to start a company next. Please help us. So that helps.
Yeah. And in the case of, did you take any angel funds, or was it straight to VC for your first one?
A few of us actually put in a little bit of private money, working for free for a while before we can get there.
Yeah. And Atmosic's been around for what? We said 2.5 years, roughly?
Yeah, roughly.
And you said you're going to samples here in Q2.
Yeah.
That's actually a pretty fast pace.
We are very fortunate to have assembled a team of very good engineers from the industry with a good background, having done the wireless connectivity in their past lives. So we were very fortunate.
Yeah, because I was say that's going from startup to having zero, an SoC ready for early design win work.
And it's not just the hardware side. There's also the entire software.
Right.
And the systems, the reference design that goes along with it. So we've truly been
well, congratulations on that. If people want to keep track of what you're doing and Atmosic, what's the best place they can find you?
Website link helps. So we are on the internet. We have Twitter accounts and we have LinkedIn accounts. Those are all active.
Okay, we will have all of that in the show notes. So you can just hop over to killinnovations.com and we will have all of that information. What's next for Atmosic? You've got your trials, you've got your early sampling coming up.
Yes.
You've got kind of your 3 pillars you're focused on. Mm-hmm. What's next?
So the immediate goal is getting our solution to volume production, customer engagement, looking towards the first revenue.
Perfect. David, thanks a lot for taking the time for joining us today. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back into the next segment. Next segment will be a new episode of 5 Minutes to New Ideas. That's where we challenge you, the listener, with creative, insightful, and sometimes pretty crazy, funny questions to cause you to think and look at opportunities for your next idea differently. So you're not going to want to miss it, so stay right there. Also, 5 Minutes to New Ideas is actually now a standalone podcast. You can find it on iTunes and iHeartRadio and Spotify and Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts. So if you're short on time and you're looking for that daily inspiration, go over there and grab the 5 Minutes to New Ideas. And we'll be right back after this quick commercial break. You're listening to Kill Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network. Back in the early days of this show, I would share what I called a killer question in each episode. These questions were designed to be used in your personal, team, or organization's innovation efforts. Now, based on feedback from listeners just like you, we've decided to bring it back with some improvements. Each episode of the Kill Innovations has a segment that I'm now calling 5 Minutes to New Ideas. It's designed for the creative mind looking for that next great idea. Each episode will challenge you to think differently about yourself, your business, and your products and services by asking unique, funny, and sometimes crazy questions. These questions are designed to force you to look beyond the obvious and to uncover ideas and opportunities you never before considered. So, get out your notebook and be ready to uncover that game-changing idea. Here is 5 minutes to new ideas. Any writer, syndicated columnist, innovator, or perhaps even a podcast host, sooner or later will run into what some would call writer's block. They find themselves drawing a blank. They have a deadline rapidly approaching, and they find themselves with nothing, not a single good idea. It has happened to me more times than I would care to admit. I have a show script that needs writing, and I find myself looking at my laptop with nothing. I go for a walk, I read my emails, I check out my social media, still nothing. Then start the excuses to do something else. Anything else than sitting there struggling. In some cases, I give up with the anticipation that I'll try later in the hope that something will inspire me. In the rare case, I discipline myself to get back at it and keep working on it. The best solution to the problem is to just write. Don't hesitate, just do it. Sit down and write something, anything, and then keep going. I love it when wannabe creatives and innovators say that they need to wait until they get inspired. Wait until they can court their muse. Those who make a living on being creative on a deadline would starve or find themselves looking for other work. They do not have the luxury of waiting for inspiration. I once gave a speech a number of years ago to a group of people who were interested in creating their own podcast. At that point, I'd been doing my podcast for about 8 years. One piece of advice I gave them on how to create a strong following of listeners was to be consistent and diligent about putting out the shows. If they found themselves in a position where they had no ideas for a show, sit down and publish a show anyway. While I admit I said this, it has come back to haunt me. Over the 15 years of producing a weekly podcast, there have been many times where I wanted to just skip a week. It would have been easy to rationalize why there was no show this week. But we committed to our listeners back in 2005 that we would be here for the long haul, and we have been. The key to success in producing a podcast is the same as in any other field. You need to establish the right work habits. And the best way to establish the right work habits is to do something you know should be done every day. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. The more confident you become. And the result of your work gets better every day. I have found that the more I do what needs to be done every day, the more ideas I get for future shows. Like most people, I am a world-class procrastinator. We all know that putting something off that we know needs to be done causes us to dread doing it. So once we start down this path, we keep pushing off what needs doing, and the task grows larger and larger. Eventually, in desperation, we attack the task and get it done. And upon self-reflection, we have to admit that it wasn't that hard. Had we just done it, we could have avoided all the stress. One of the right work habits for creativity and innovation is the daily exercise of your creative muscle. How do you exercise your creative muscle? Brainstorm on a personal project. Create some music. Take photographs. Do whatever challenges you creatively. Now, to count it as exercise, you need to do this daily. Not just taking photographs on your 2-week vacation once a year. As any athlete knows, a regular exercise is key to achieving success. The same applies to your creative ability. At the same time, how many people do we know have signed up for gym membership as part of that New Year resolution with all of the intention to use it to find themselves a few months later not going to the gym? Just as most of us have put off any form of physical exercise, I'm willing to guess that you've been putting off exercising your creative muscle. If you don't mind taking some advice from someone who's been guilty of the same thing, just do it now. Just start. Before you know it, you will have completed day 1 of exercising your creative muscle, and you will feel proud of yourself. If every day each of us would do the things we know we really should be doing to exercise our creative muscle, we would always be ahead of the game instead of lagging forever behind and then having to run like mad to catch up. So, what creative exercise are you going to do today? I'm Phil McKinney, and thanks for listening. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join in. If you have any comments or suggestions, drop me a note at phil@killerinnovations.com. Beyond this show, I write about my personal experiences of being in the innovation game for the last 2 decades. Topics include innovation, creativity, culture, team building, metrics, frustrations, leadership, and how to win. You can find that content over at philmckinney.com. My first mentor, Bob Davis, invested an immense amount of time in training and coaching me, which had a major impact on my career. When I went back and asked him how I could pay him back, he laughed and said I couldn't. I had to pay it forward. If I could ask for a favor, could you help me pay it forward? How? 1, by giving us a rating wherever you get your podcast, as that helps spread the word. And 2, by telling others about the show. If you want to be part of the conversation between the shows, I hang out in the Innovators community on Slack. The Innovators community is a private community of vetted innovators who help each other succeed. Check it out at theinnovators.community. This episode of Killer Innovations was produced by the Innovators Network. You can find the show notes and the entire show catalog going back to 2005 at killerinnovations.com. I'll talk to you next week, and in the meantime, go out and change the world with your killer innovation. Bye-bye.